Northern Avenue Bridge. It's a turnstile bridge that is stuck in the open position. It's actually been stuck in that open position for a lot of years. They're finally going to take it down and build a beautiful new pedestrian walkway. But I mention this bridge because beyond it is where Griffin's Wharf used to be, and that's where the Boston Tea Party happened. You may have heard of the Boston Tea Party. So on December 16, 1773, a group of patriots, including Sam Adams, were very angry about the heavy taxation of tea and other goods from the British, especially because they were not being represented in their own country. So in protest, they threw an entire cargo of tea off of 3 Nantucket merchant ships. This was 92,000 pounds of loose leaf tea. A whole lot of tea, especially considering loose leaf tea weighs almost nothing. A lot of tea, and they did this stating no taxation without representation. This is one of the sparks of the American Revolutionary War. To the left of the Northern Avenue Bridge, we're passing this brick building with the wave of glass in front. This is the John Joseph Mowgli Federal Courthouse. That wave of glass is there to represent a wave of justice coming over the city of Boston. The building was designed by I.M. Pei. He was a famous Chinese-American architect. He also designed Hancock Tower in our city. He designed the John F. Kennedy Memorial Library. He famously designed the pyramid above the Louvre in Paris, so his work is all over the world. A number of famous people have been tried here at this courthouse. Whitey Bulger, famous South Boston gangster, was put on trial here. And if anyone remembers the college admissions scandal that happened a couple of years ago, Lori Loughlin was also put on trial here as well. She actually had more paparazzi than Whitey Bulger did. Now everything towards the right side of the boat right now is South Boston. South Boston used to be called South Bay because it's entirely man-made land. More specifically, we are passing the Innovation District with all these glass buildings here. Pretty newly constructed. I will point out the shorter glass building that's in front of the building that says Goodwin. This is the Institute of Contemporary Art. It's the second most visited art museum in Boston. By the way, this building was the tallest building in this district until 2013. So that will tell you how new this entire district really is. And by the way, you'll also see there are 2 white poles with screens attached to them. So they just put those up just a couple of days ago, because on June 4th of this year, which is coming up just in a couple of days, we've been waiting for this. Red Bull sponsors a dive off of the ICA. So people are going to, those are diving boards. People are going to dive off of that building 93 feet into the water. I don't know why someone would want to do that, but and it's probably going to be quite cold, but it's going to be really, really fun to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing that as we're going by. Oh, there's our boat. And that weird glass building there. You can wave to yourself. That's us. I love that effect. That was built a couple of years ago. But yeah, people are going to dive off of that shorter glass building. It's also a fantastic museum. It's actually free on Thursday nights. So if you're around on a Thursday night, if you want something free to do in the city, which is rare, go to the ICA. That's always, they have some beautiful exhibits there. So now we're passing Commonwealth Pier. On top of Commonwealth Pier used to be the South Boston World Trade Center. Now they're doing a lot of construction on it. They're going to be putting in some shops and some restaurants. This is going to be a beautiful new expansion to our Innovation District. As you can see, they just finished putting up all this glass. They're sticking with the glass theme here. Construction is supposed to be finished in 2024, so I would imagine that summer this is going to be a really popular place to go to. And now back to Old Boston. We're passing the South Boston Fishing Pier. It's the oldest fishing pier in the country. You might notice there are some boats that are docked to either side of the pier. These boats are called stern draggers because at the stern of the boat, or the back of the boat, there are nets. The nets will drag. That's how they catch fish. These stern draggers go 150 miles off of this fishing pier to George's Bank, which is one of the richest, most profitable fishing banks in the world. At its heyday, the South Boston Fishing Pier would handle about 330 million pounds of fish a year. That was around the 1970s. The fishing industry has definitely declined a bit. But we still have those boats going out there every day catching haddock, cod, scallops, and we also have boats around here that catch, I think, one of the best parts of Boston Harbor, lobster, so that you can have a lobster for dinner. That is, you have to have a lobster roll before you leave Boston. It's essentially required. I'll also point out this white tent here. This is the Leaderbank Pavilion. It is a concert venue in Boston. So we are going to have live music this summer, which is exciting. Anytime post 2020 when you can have live music, I think is very good. In the past, we've had a lot of big names play here. We've had Britney Spears, Billie Eilish, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross. Frank Sinatra was actually here at one point, so a lot of big names at this pavilion. It'll seat about 5,000 people. Now behind the pavilion, so closer to us, you're going to see a dock that has a very rusty front gate. And if we were a little closer and a little higher, you'd be able to see that the inside of the dock is hollow. This is called a dry dock. This is how they work on the really large ships in the city. What they do is they open up that gate, that rusty front gate. All of the water rushes into that hollow place. They take the ship in, close the gate, pump all the water out, leaving the ship what is called high and dry. They work on the hull of the ship, or the body of the ship. Once that's done, open up that gate, water rushes back in, they take the ship out, and it's ready to work. So that's essentially that process. We're also passing the Legal Seafood's Quality Control Center. You'll see this art installation of a codfish on top. So the eye of that codfish will change colors depending on the wind speed. If the sun were down, you'd be able to see it flashing, changing lots of different colors. It costs Legal Seafoods $750,000 just to build the fish. However, they definitely have the money. For those of you who don't know, Legal Seafoods is known as the gold star standard of seafood in New England. There are Legal Seafoods all over Massachusetts and beyond. It's actually one in Florida now. In fact, there's a Legal Seafoods at Long Wharf where we just pulled out of. That's a nice nearby place to get some good lunch. Okay. Now behind that quality control center, you're going to see these strange looking triangular vents. They look silver at the top. So these vents are venting the Ted Williams Tunnel, which is one of 3 tunnels and 1 subway line that run underneath the water. In fact, we just went right over the Ted Williams Tunnel. So this tunnel was built as a part of the Big Dig construction project. The point of the Big Dig was to take the highways that were on stilts and bridges around the city and put them underwater and underground in tunnels to make the city itself much more spacious. It did what it needed to do in the end, it did, but it took way too long and it cost a lot more money than anyone was expecting. The Big Dig was supposed to be finished in 1998, wasn't actually finished until 2007. The original budget was $2.8 billion. In the end, it cost $22 billion. It went $20 billion over budget. It became the most expensive highway project in the country. Now we're passing this long white building. You'll see it says Reebok on top. This is the South Boston Army Warehouse and Barracks. The building was built way back in 1910. During both World Wars, millions of tons of equipment were loaded into this warehouse and barracks. Thousands of soldiers would board their ships to go to war from here. Now you can see it says Reebok on top. That's because today it's the headquarters for Reebok. It's also the headquarters for a lot of other companies, America's Test Kitchen, Toys for Tots, and many different interior designing companies as well. Now this is one of the few instances, that I'm going to ask you to look to the left side of the boat, because right now we are passing an airport, and no need to strain your backs. We're going to be passing this airport for quite some time. So first thing I want to mention about this airport is this long rock retaining wall. Whenever you see a rock retaining wall, that's going to tell you that that's man-made land. This is, and we have a plane that's taking off over us right now. I'm going to give it a moment, they can get loud.
Woo! Beautiful.
So whenever you see a rock retaining wall, that's going to tell you that that's man-made land. Logan International Airport, if you flew to our city, you probably flew into Logan. It's all man-made land. 2,400 acres of it. It is the 19th busiest airport in the country. Generates about $7 billion a year. Plane departs or lands to or from Logan Airport about every 90 seconds. So it's a busy, busy airport. Now all this land that they created for the airport, like I said, 2,400 acres of man-made land. So they created this using that wharfing out method that I had mentioned at the beginning of the tour, but also using 3 former islands that now essentially sit underneath the airport that have basically just been flattened out. These islands were Governor's Island, Bird Island, and Apple Island. Governor's Island originally was owned by Massachusetts' first governor, John Winthrop. And as sweet as the name Bird Island sounds, it was actually called that because this is where they would dump the bodies of captured pirates, and birds would come to the island to feast on their rotting remains. I know, a little bit nicer was Apple Island. This is where some of the first apples and plums were planted in North America by a young John Chapman. Folklore and storytelling might have you know him a little bit better as Johnny Appleseed. Now we're passing the Connolly Container Terminal with all of these colorful containers here. So these containers are called intermodal containers, and they interlock on these huge ships in a very direct competition with the British, which is one of the reasons why the British started taxing them so much, which then eventually led to the American Revolutionary War. Now, before we get to this next site, speaking once again about that big day construction project, this project that took